In a quiet, affluent suburb of Hale in Greater Manchester, where the buzz of electric clippers in a local barber shop drowned out the usual hum of street traffic, a brutal criminal plot was unfolding, one that would rival scenes from a Hollywood thriller in both its complexity and cruelty. A man known to police and the criminal underworld alike as a significant player in the drug trade had just stepped out of a barber shop with a fresh trim, unaware that he was walking directly into a meticulously planned trap. The sunshine of that April afternoon in 2019 offered no warning of the darkness that he was about to consume. Three men, calm, calculated, dressed as plainclothes police officers, approached him. With chilling authority, they informed him he was being arrested on suspicion of Class A drug trafficking. The victim, no stranger to police attention, didn't resist. He assumed it was business as usual until the unthinkable began to unfold. Handcuffed and bundled into a sleek black Audi, he was driven not to a police station, but towards the shadows, toward a cold, grim industrial unit in Gorton, where his captors would reveal their true faces and their violent intentions. What followed was a 12-hour ordeal of sadistic torture and psychological torment, the kind not easily put into words. The man, stripped of power and dignity, was shocked with a taser directly to his genitals, burned with a blowtorch, and had a gun, later confirmed to be a realistic, it was imitation, pressed against his head in a mock execution. As he struggled in agony, his tormentors issued a chilling demand of £100,000 in cash and £400,000 worth of coke and heroin, or he would die. They believed he was worth millions. They believed that even in agony, he would be resourceful enough or feared enough to produce the ransom. But they underestimated his family. With the victim's loved one who received the ransom call, they didn't respond with silence or submission. Instead, they called the police. And from there, high-stakes race began, one that would end in a dramatic rescue, multiple arrests, and one of the most significant kidnapping prosecutions Greater Manchester Police had ever handled. 8 men made up the gang, and their roles varied from mastermind to muscle, each one playing a vital part in executing what Judge Hilary Manley later called a carefully choreographed and deeply cruel criminal enterprise. So Michael Etuhu was the inside operator, and at 36, he was once well known in the football circles, a former agent and brother to professional players who once graced Manchester City. But his fall from grace was as dramatic as it was dark. Behind the scenes, he used his business acumen and connections to help coordinate the logistics of the crime. From securing the lockup to managing communication between the group, his ties to Manchester gave him influence. His betrayal of that influence cost him 10 years and 2 months in prison. You got Shaun Freeman. Perhaps the most intimidating figure was Shaun, of Hume, a long-time friend of the victim. Freeman had played football with him regularly and dined with him and even laughed with him. All the while he was collecting information, vehicle registration, family names, habits, routes, hideouts. He acted as a guide for the out-of-town gang, leading them to the victim like a lamb to slaughter. For his betrayal, he was sentenced to 9 years. He didn't wield a weapon, but he carved the path for destruction. Then you had Micah Walfall, who was the enforcer. He was known amongst his co-conspirators as the Heavy. Micah Walfall, who was 40 years old, was the brute force behind the operation. It was he who tore the victim from the Audi and flung him into the waiting VW transporter. It was he who delivered the blows, the shocks, the burns. After the crime, Walfall fled to Spain, disappearing into the sun. But justice pursued him across the border. He was eventually extradited and returned to the UK, where he was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. And you've got Delroy Chin, who's the tracker. Behind every well-executed ambush is the man in the shadows watching. And Delroy Chin was that man. He was responsible for planting a tracking device on the victim's car, allowing the gang to follow his every move. He too coordinated with the Midlands crew and played a pivotal role in setting the trap. For his role, Chin received 11 years in prison. And you got Nicky Barnes, who's from Northampton. He was one of the lesser-known faces, but his actions were far from professional. Known for his evasive movements and near-visible digital footprint, Barnes helped plan the operation ensured the team stayed one step ahead. The judge considered his role so serious that he was handed one of the longest sentences, 12 years. You got Daniel Lowe as the driver. He played the part of the getaway driver. He was the one in the Audi that first intercepted the victim outside the barber shop. Cool-headed and controlled, he guided the vehicle not toward justice but toward imprisonment and pain. For his role, he received 10 years and 6 months. You got Ben Ukaegbu, who was the gang's mouthpiece who took part in the abduction and was involved in relaying demands to the victim's family. Calm, articulate, and utterly ruthless, he was one of the first to be arrested when armed officers raided the lockup. He was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. And you got John Bishop. He was from London. He was the fraudulent cop, and he played the role of a fake police officer during the fake arrest. His part may have seemed minor compared to others, but it was crucial to the psychological manipulation that allowed the plan to work. He received 7 years behind bars. Anyway, on the night of the rescue, police forces moved with military precision. Armed officers breached the lock-up doors in Gorton. Inside, they found the battered, broken victim still alive, but deeply traumatized. His captors were either arrested at the scene or caught in months that followed. The message from the Great Manchester Police was clear. No one is above the law, even in the criminal underworld. Sergeant Mark Evans of the Greater Manchester Police Major Incident Team reflected after sentencing, this just wasn't a kidnapping, this was a betrayal, a siege affair. Freeman lured his friend like a sheep to slaughter. The victim's family were brave. Their quick action saved his life. We are proud to finally deliver the justice. So this case was more than just a criminal trial. It was a vivid snapshot of the dangers lurking within organised crime. As we know, loyalty is an illusion. Friendship is a currency, and betrayal can come even with a smile. And mostly it comes from the people that are close to you. Never ever forget that. Let me just repeat that again. Betrayal will come from someone who is close to you. Anyway, for the victim, his scars are not just physical. His past may have involved crime, but his ordeal showed a deeper truth, that even in a world ruled by power and money, some lines should never be crossed. The rescue in Gorton marked more than just the end of a nightmarish ordeal. It marked the unravelling of a criminal empire built on greed, deception, and violence. Within the walls of that industrial unit, the gang's twisted fantasy of power collapsed under the boots of armed officers and the blinding lights of justice. But for the victim, the nightmare did not end there. With the opening of that lock-up door, though he survived, his life was forever altered, scarred not only by the burns and bruises inflicted by his captors, but the betrayal of someone he once called a friend. Shaun Freeman's his disloyalty to him cut deeper than any weapon. In court, as each of the men was sentencing, as we've been through the sentencing, the facade of bravado slipped. The enforcers, the masterminds, the manipulators, the drivers all stood in silence as Judge Hilary Manley delivered their fate with clinical precision. Each man was handed a sentence measured not just in years, but the sheer brutality of what they did. This was no impulsive crime. This was a cold, calculated, industrial-scale operation, rehearsed, financed, and executed with military-like discipline. But their arrogance blinded them. They believed they could mimic authority, exploit loyalty, and manipulate fear. They believed their plan was flawless. They were wrong. The final gavel didn't just bring justice for the victim, it sent a message echoing through Manchester's criminal underworld. No matter how clever your disguise, no matter how deep your connections, there's nowhere to hide from the consequences. As you know, this gang's empire crumbled, and justice has now spoken. So guys, this is a new story coming from the Northwest, a case from yesteryear. Let me know what you think. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.